p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda, or second item on the agenda is the approval of the October 19th, 2020 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any comments or suggestions? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then. Scott?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Jason? And that was an aye, and me, aye. Okay, next we have old business, creation of the 2021 goals discussion. Sam, do you want to do all this? Since you're the repository of knowledge at this point.
Yeah, I've got some of it collected. Some of it I got this morning. I don't have reworded or inserted, but yeah, can go through it together here. Just a moment. And I appreciate all the work everyone's done. I know that deadlines help me too, so I felt a rush there toward the last couple of days. So thanks for that.
Well, and I don't know whether I'm muted or not. I think I'm open, but I have to apologize for not remembering that I took on number 3 update by myself and I never tackled it, but I did tackle Jason to make sure that we got our one together. And he did most of it.
Well, you know what your assignment is for next month, Steve.
Still working here. I apologize.
That's all right. Better you than me.
Trying to make it a little bigger here. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So if you can see that, I've made it about as big as I can. Okay, so this first one was one that Shauna and I had worked on, and I apologize for my throat. I feel fine.
Good.
So the first one, so that's kind of following the SMART template, the specific, measurable. No, I've lost my train of thought. Attainable, realistic, or relevant, and time sensitive, or time bound. So this one is, instead of doing the mandatory set aside, this is focused on the zoning incentive. And we just picked out density as a starting point. And so the springboard here is the housing needs assessment or housing study, as we've been calling it. And knowing that when developments do come in, that in order to kind of push people toward providing housing affordability or a certain affordability factor, that they get maybe more dwelling units per acre, or there could be some other zoning incentive. This would be primarily for new development, probably not for rehabs. It could be, but we were thinking primarily new development. So I'll read it out. By September 1st, 2021, the City of Oxford will have adopted a policy, which could be a resolution or an ordinance, to allow increased dwelling unit density or another zoning incentive in exchange for a guaranteed monthly rent. Focus on the word guarantee there. The rent would be at or below the target set by the housing needs assessment, or the developer could make an equivalent payment to the Housing Trust Fund, which is the fund that's been currently zeroed out, in order to receive the zoning incentive. So I don't know, Sean, if you want to add any more to that or not, but the current goals didn't have anything that specific in there. It talked about evaluating the set-asides and the incentives, but this takes that a little bit further.
So
I don't have
Sam,
anything
when
to-
you read it, you said 2020 housing needs assessment H&A, and you read just the or without the and or mean two different things. Are you going to take the and out?
I was going to leave it because I think this is pretty specific. So the or would be if there's no way for the person to actually build them. And I think the city council, if it's a planned development, it would go to city council and, they could review that. This gives a choice. So I think an incentive is different than a requirement. So if you want to not have it, that's fine too.
I was just asking for clarification.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great if they did both, but I don't see that happening very often. They probably pick one or the other.
I was gonna say just that I really appreciate Sam helping me. Well, basically Sam wrote this after we had a great conversation. So thank you, Sam. Really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to getting this. This seems like a great action step to me. So I will definitely keep up on it. I think September 1st is a great deadline. So thank you again.
Sure. Yeah, this will take make sure I'm not muted here. No. This will take a fair bit of staff work to draft some legislation to get this in place. So I wanted to make sure we had enough time to get that done, and probably going to need some feedback from council too in the interim. So thanks for being flexible on giving us the time for that. So I guess I can go on to the next one, unless anybody has any questions on that.
Just a comment about, you mentioned that this was the same, the HTF that we zeroed out. And I thought that there was a problem with the way that fund was set up. So will that problem be fixed before dollars would be redeposited?
No, there's no problem with it. The problem is it's sitting at zero for too long. So I would think that if there's not a revenue source identified in 2021, then it will have to go away completely.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only problem I'm aware of. So moving on, the second one was, this was one that has been completely redone. And I think Glenn wanted to have some specific input into the goals, and this is one that he's been interested in. So we don't have the one about non-performing properties, if you remember that discussion, to push property owners to either lower their rent or allow something positive to happen to their building. So based on the feedback we heard from the law director, we dropped that one. This one is one that Glenn was interested in. I don't think he's online right now, but the idea, and I appreciate his guidance here, which was to, instead of continuing to go through the neighborhood conservation overlay process, which is pretty laborious for the neighborhood and for the city, it would make that part of the underlying code as a given right. So in the way I worded it in here for Glenn, is we would complete an impact analysis. So I didn't actually say we would do it. I didn't commit to it. I'm a little bit concerned about making this sort of a mandatory restriction in every R1A and R1B zone. I like the idea and I appreciate saving the staff time and the neighborhood time, but I want to make sure that we're not exposing ourselves legally too much. The second part to this, and I like the idea of protecting neighborhoods from sort of the domino effect. And I guess I should have read it before I got into the discussion, but is the idea that we should have some way to potentially allow rental properties within these neighborhoods still. And so whether that may not be for traditional college student housing, but in order to diversify neighborhoods, I think we've maybe not specifically stated it, but income levels and housing cost variety within neighborhoods is a good thing. So if we overly restrict the land uses, that may not actually happen. So that's what we need to do in the impact analysis. So I'll read it out for you. By June 1st, 2021, the City of Oxford will have completed an impact analysis of incorporating the neighborhood conservation overlay occupancy restrictions into the R1A and B zoning districts without requiring any petition from the owners. This goal is intended to maintain integrity of single-family neighborhoods by protecting them from the domino effect of student-focused rental housing. Any questions about that one? I see Glenn is not, oh, there he is. Glenn's online.
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right.
Yeah, basically I was just going to agree with what you said about making sure we don't impact more than student rentals with the restrictions.
Hey, Jason, what exactly would more than student rentals be?
I hadn't even thought about it that much. Just, yeah, just worry there's not
Jason,
ancillary effects, that's all.
Would you be talking about like duplexes and things like that?
Just anyone who needs housing who isn't a student and brings, and that's the thing too, because some students don't cause some of the problems that we're hinting at here. But yeah, we don't want to decrease chances for other people to get access to housing through normal renting and other things that might be affected. This is me thinking just generally, that's all.
Hey, Sam, can I suggest a minor change in the last sentence from student focused to for profit?
Okay. Yeah.
And my concerns will probably be covered in the impact analysis anyway. I'm just stating a minor worry, that's all.
Yeah, and to give you both an example, oh, Shauna's got her hand up, sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, in response to Jason, or more to add on to what Jason said, that, you know, Sherry has talked in the past about intergenerational housing, or not even intergenerational, but, you know, seniors that may want to share households. So I would want that to be looked at in an impact analysis. So I was just kind of giving an example of a couple of ways that we might not want to limit rentals in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I was also going to add, thank you, Shauna. I was going to add that I think one of the examples would be there are a few vacant lots within some of these R1A and R1B neighborhoods that we could actually allow the owner to split the lot and put in 2 rental houses. And that would actually help to diversify the neighborhood and convert those properties to tax-paying, more tax revenue generating properties, but also meet the need for housing affordability in the community. And so, because when you make a property smaller, then it allows that return margin to be a little bit better. So, and if it's not a for-profit rental situation, then the number of people who are living there is irrelevant. And so that's part of what we would do in the impact analysis, kind of look into that.
I still have questions about that wording though, because doesn't any landlord hope to develop a profit?
Yeah, I think I get the spirit of what Glenn is saying. So if you could give me the liberty to kind of come up with some synonyms or some phrasing that would capture that, I think I can capture it.
Fine.
But yeah, I agree, Steve. I know what you're saying. All right, well, Sherry, then if that's okay, I'll move on to the next one. And actually, this is actually the previous goal, and I think one that maybe Scott was working on. And so I have some more wording that I haven't put in here. But maybe if I could speak to the spirit of it, and then Scott could fill in. The idea here with this, that the direction that Scott was going was to, if you will, set the table for a development to happen by finding out all the different steps and identifying the properties, find out what needs to be done, maybe even get some kind of response from the property owner, find out what the zoning code would allow, what the utilities would allow, all of those things, to kind of make some shovel-ready projects. The city may not be the one to actually develop them. It may be more of just a communication gateway. So we don't have any feedback yet from a bank, and I think that's kind of what we were looking for. But Scott had done quite a bit of work already and had given some thought to. I know the property we talked about was on Hester Road. I'm not sure we would want to put that in the goal, but I think a goal that we could have is to come up with at least a couple properties by middle of 2021 and have a pro forma or a process laid out so that if somebody did want to, either a bank or a nonprofit did want to get those moving, something like a habitat type of project, then they're ready to go and they're not having to ask so many questions. So Scott, feel free to fill in any blanks for me.
Well, I am still crunching numbers because it is a very tight margin. But I have spoken to the owner or the son of the owner of that Hester Road property, and it benefits him and could it benefit us as well, and to the point where he would give us a very discounted rate on the property, provided the investor puts in a street, which would allow access to an adjacent property that they own. I'm still crunching the numbers right now. I've just barely got it at a break even. I don't see a profit in it, which is what an investor is going to be looking for, but possibly partnering up with other entities that have done similar projects. They might be able to help us avoid some of the pitfalls, or maybe want to take the project on themselves. I didn't know how this works, but it appears that the Habitat for Humanity owners aren't paying real estate taxes, which is a significant savings for those folks. And that really helps put into the equation how much house we can build for them, how much they can afford. There's just so many different things to have to consider. It almost has to be on a one-by-one basis. What would work in one parcel absolutely may not work at all at another piece of land. The only thing that makes this particular one work is that if you put a road right down the middle of it, you could get 12 to 15 houses on the property. And like Sam was saying, the smaller you make the parcel, the less you have invested in each piece, makes each house more affordable. So,
Scott?
yeah.
I have a question. On the Habitat for Humanity houses, is there an end point or a maximum sale value that will keep them affordable for a while? And is that contingent on the non-payment of taxes?
I do not have the answer to that, honestly.
Because that would make it, I mean, if let's say the tax abatement goes away in 10 years after purchase, then the people who live there might no longer be able to afford it if they have to start paying taxes. And would they, be able to make a massive income off of the property, or would they be restricted? Or it would just be interesting to have information about that.
Agreed. And
also the property you're talking about, didn't it have drainage issues?
I haven't gotten that far, honestly, because I thought I'd heard something about sewer level, But I don't know if that's truly the case, if anybody
Okay.
ever really got that far along. And having access to the property behind, perhaps that could be resolved by going into, tapping into theirs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think the issue was with that, Sherry, is a sanitary sewer service evaluation needed to be done on the property. And I have offered to the previous interested party that the city could potentially cost share on evaluating that as part of our affordable housing goals. But I haven't gotten an estimate. So I think it's good that Scott is maybe looking here to see if somebody else can do something with that property. Whether it's this property or another property in town, I think the spirit of it is identifying some properties that meet the zoning, that are probably not going to be student housing, that we can answer questions for potential developers on, so that we're not going into this continuous circle of answering the same questions every time.
Great.
So, but yeah, thanks, Scott, for the work you did. And I know it's not done yet, but and on our end, it never will be. It's just a continual process of trying to help meet these goals. This is something, housing affordability or attainability is not something that is the open market is going to do very well. So we're just going to have to guide that. So having these goals written is going to help with that. The other thing I will add to that, that I mentioned to Scott over the phone was I've recently been learning about the concept of a community land trust, or a CLT. And I talked with Glenn about that too. And it might be something that Oxford can make happen, probably not within the city government, but it's not uncommon for those to help with home ownership, but still maintain affordability. So the community land trust actually holds the deed, and the person who is buying the house owns the house on top of the land, and they get to do whatever they want to with it. So it's a pretty cool concept. So we don't have a lot of extra nonprofit bandwidth in Oxford, but maybe someday that could be something that would happen that would help for the longer term, because I know that's been one of the concerns in the past is, okay, we make this property available, somebody buys it, but then when they sell it the next time, it's no longer affordable. It kind of defeats the purpose. So I'll just throw that out there for the future. All right. So the next one, this is the version I actually drafted. And I think there was another version that Sherry, you sent me about the city's Western Knolls property. So do you want me to read my version and then yours, or?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Because I don't think there's any way for you to split screen it, right?
No, there's not.
Okay.
So number 4, provide regular comments on the development details of the city's 47-acre Western Knolls property through the design process of the first 10 acres. Also to provide continual encouragement for proactively advertising and also influencing the development of the remainder of the property, consistent with the themes of the 2019 design charrette. And I'll just read yours rather than try to put it on the screen.
Okay.
It's the same goal topic, but different wording. Support City Council's focus throughout 2021 on the development of the remainder of the 47-acre of the Western Knolls property by defining development parameters using the results of the Housing Needs Assessment Study and the 2019 design charrettes in order to fulfill community needs as defined by said HNA of a diversity of housing types and price points to ensure an increased supply of affordable housing units. So that one's a lot more specific. Doesn't really have a deadline, neither did mine. So yeah, I think we can merge those together, Sherry, you and I, and
Okay.
come up with something that is, I guess what I'm looking for out of this goal is a feedback loop. with HAC, so that the city doesn't just go out and do another advertisement for the rest of the land without getting some feedback from HAC. And maybe the HAC is satisfied with the way it is now, but like I said before, I don't think the open market is going to do this on its own.
I think that you could move it closer to a SMART goal by just saying throughout the year.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. I see what you're saying.
Isn't that what it says in the first line?
On yours, it does. Yep. Throughout 2021. Yep. So I think we're good there.
I think it's just a matter of adding the encouragement for proactive advertising and influencing. Yeah, I think it's just the continual encouragement for proactive advertising is the only thing that's going to be added to what I've got, right?
Yep. You got
Okay.
it.
All right, we got it.
Yep. And before we get to the last one, I'll go on to share your next one about revenue sources for the Housing Trust Fund.
Oh, that's the number 6, right?
Yep. Okay, we can do that after then. So
Yeah,
let's-
and you'll note by, if you read the minutes, that we are up to 8. So Jason may not be so positive about his 37% increase.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and read this number 5 then.
Okay,
This is the one that Jason, I think, in partnership with Steve, maybe worked on to evaluate the efficacy and ongoing needs of Oxford's 2020 pilot shelter and housing assistance transitional housing plans by mid-year and again at the end of year 2021. Make these programs sustainable through supplemental funding streams and non-deleterious opportunities for cost savings, responsive to our ongoing evaluations, and with the goal of funding 2 years beyond each evaluation. So that's the way I understand, kind of an iterative process of looking back to see how this sheltering project that's about to get underway, if it's not yet already, is going, and then whether that can be long-term, and if so, how to fund it as part of a normal operations. So feel free to chime in any more there, Jason.
No, that was pretty perfect.
Okay. Okay, and then the number 6 one, Sherry, that you sent has to do with funding sources.
yeah, Sean and I worked on that together.
Okay. Actually, I think I might pull this one up on my email. I'll try anyway.
Ah, Nicole is with us.
Hello.
Oh,
All right. I don't know if I can't really make it bigger, but if you have a large screen, maybe you can see number 6. So I'll read it now. Pursuant to the HNA study, HAC will define sources for development of the Housing Trust Fund using grants and other sources to be identified during the 2021 year, as well as the assigned percentage of the transient guest lodging tax defined by City Council resolution or ordinance for 1 bedroom or more. These funds will be specifically used for rent and eviction prevention through the Family Resource Center and cash incentives for developers to encourage the development of affordable housing and forgivable or low interest loans for families to purchase homes within the city of Oxford.
I like that.
There's
Nice.
a lot of stuff crammed into that piece.
Did want to say something about the TGL stuff. Just I have in my notes several times actually that this was actually something that would be brought to council in the October-November timeframe, and we're looking at mid-November now. So I guess I just wanted an update from city council members on making that TGL tax possible through changing the number of beds for the hospitality tax that's required.
Well, I'll chime in there since there's a pause. The city manager had asked the law director to work with the finance director about it. So I'm going to make the assumption that there are other priorities that got in front of it. So it'd probably be a good idea to bring it up actually at a council meeting, or an email to the city manager actually has a lot of influence there. So just check the status on it as my suggestion. I can do it, but it doesn't have as much impact.
Should we do that as a request from the commission, Sherry?
Well, we can either do that or have one of our city council members. Sam, do you think it needs to be done before we submit the 2021 goals, or do you think it needs to correspond with the submission of the 2021 goals?
I think the 2021 goals would be helpful to have done before then, but that could just be delaying what needs to be worked on too. So I'll leave it up to you.
Well, do either one of our city council members feel any desire to propose or to mention this to city council, that it's coming up into the 2021 goals, and that perhaps they could start working on it?
Yeah, I certainly don't mind. Yeah, I can mention it. I do feel like maybe if it came from Housing Advisory Commission, it'd be a little stronger, but either way.
I kind of feel that way too, and it takes it off of any individual council member. So I'd like to make a motion that we prepare some kind of a statement, a short statement to council asking them to begin to work on this topic.
So do we have a second?
I'd like to also add to that.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily need to be an in-person statement. You can send a message on behalf of the Housing Advisory Commission to Mary Ann Eaton and have that read during public comments.
I like that idea.
So Steve, do you want to work on that with me?
Sure.
Shauna, you want to be part of it?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, so the three of us will meet and we'll try to knock something out relatively quickly but efficiently. We'll run it past Sam, and then we'll submit it for insert into the minutes.
Are we going to do a second and a vote on that so that we can say that it was an adopted resolution?
Sure, we can do that. Do we have a second?
That was me.
Thank you, Jason. All right. Trying to get a roll call, but it's going to be challenged since I don't have my group here. Hang on.
Sure, I can turn off.
Okay, roll call. Scott? Steve? I have two quiet yeses, so I assume that's right.
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
And Nicola?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay, so it's moved and seconded and passed. All right, so the three of us will make some time sometime. Can we focus this week, or do we need another week to think about it?
When is
Shauna, you wanted it out as soon as possible, right?
when is the next council meeting?
Tomorrow.
Well,
You know, since this is a 2021 goal, I mean, and I know that there's just a lot of stuff that's in city council's lap. I mean, they're talking about the comp plan tomorrow and some other stuff. So how about we just make sure that we get it to the one in 2 weeks and 1 day, whatever
That's
date that
fine.
is.
Works for me. All right, Steve, do you want to coordinate it, since that way
Sure.
you can fit it in your ridiculously busy schedule? All right, Sam, it's back in your lap.
Yeah, we done with the goals then?
Well, maybe. According to the minutes, Jason suggested that we add solar and cooperatives for individual residents to put on rooftop solar. Steve wants to talk with Jason about this 7th goal.
I just
So-
threw that out there as something we might want to consider. It wasn't as strong as as that.
Oh, well, how do people feel about it?
Maybe we approach the new commission on, well, I know that Joan Potter Summer is working on something about conservation, and maybe we somehow communicate to them that we're interested in solar.
Actually, I might want to take that back because I think it might actually have more legs in the Environmental Commission anyway, and we might not want to duplicate that. So
Works for me. Okay, and then there's a large paragraph here. Scott had an idea for searching out city-owned property, developing it for families and selling those units to investors, basically like a condo development. Investor buys unit, has to hold on to it for a certain period of time. City gets their money back and can move into the next project, the start of the snowball of development. Sam suggested that Lori DeStola be involved in a project like this. Scott will work with Sam to add this as an 8th goal.
That in general was trying to brainstorm to more like we came up with Sam and I about bringing in an outside person and not asking the city to become the developer per se, but
Yeah.
get the city to participate in dangling some very nice carrots out there that really tack on a ton of money to being able to build a house. All the permits and the inspections and it's a laundry list, but it's things that the city might consider putting into the pot on behalf of getting the project done and staying on target for the price.
Are you still
As
interested in
opposed to
adding
getting
that
the
as
city
well?
to, I'm sorry.
Are you still interested in adding that as another goal?
Well, I thought that was kind of what Sam and I was talking about. Yeah, actually, I don't know if you got it. I sent a little something to you earlier
Send it to
today.
Sam.
And just read it and see what you think. I mean, it's certainly not polished, but explore the possible areas that could be developed with the cities of Oxford's participation in enticing an investor through fee waivers to design and building a site conducive to affordable home plans. Short, sweet. Now, it doesn't have any time limits on it because we have to identify the properties first and find an investor that will be willing to come in. So those are probably earlier goals than anything else.
So how do people feel about adding that as an additional goal? Jason, I can't hear you.
yeah, I didn't mean for that to actually come across, but I'm intrigued. That sounds like a pretty good idea to me. I'd like to hear from everybody else though.
Yeah, I think we ought to at least get started on it, Scott. Maybe you work with Sam to see what's actually a realistic timeline for 2021. And then define it as an ongoing, the X will be done by 2021, the end of 2021, and ongoing project will also include, et cetera.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sam, I just dumped more work in your lap.
Oh, that's no problem.
Okay. Okay, so if you could rewrite what we've done today. I will promise to get the minutes typed up by Saturday, and that way that you can, that'll help you work with whoever you need to work with to polish these better. Yeah, Jason?
I'm not trying to add to it, but the one thing that came up, I think around, so goal one was very specific, but in sort of that goal, an easier one that relates to it might be, which we've talked about, is increasing building height. Not trying to add to it, but just throwing that out there is something that is a very simple, easy, direct, assuming we could get it through, solution or partial solution to some of our issues around density. That's all.
Shauna? It's your baby.
I love tall buildings.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that too, as staff. I don't think it's shared among all staff, but I think that it's another way to lower the cost. It's adding land without growing horizontally. So initially, I'll say that I've done a little bit of checking, and we do have some water pressure issues uptown, where adding more building height would not be feasible without what we call fire pumps in buildings.
Water tanks on the roof, like New York.
Or there's this thing called a water tower we could put in the Uptown Park. I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
I was thinking of that as the rallying call for taller buildings. We had a water tower.
Yeah, we'll have to keep that in our back pocket, but let's not bring that up at the first stage. So I actually didn't come up with that idea. Someone else told that to me, but I thought it was pretty funny. So yeah, and I've actually thought about making that, if we have enough money set aside for next year as far as comp plan updates, or in 2022, we might be able to hire an outside firm to do a feasibility analysis on raising building heights across the entire community. Especially if we can't grow out, we could grow up. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
It's cheaper to build up.
It is.
Definitely.
Okay, so Sam, have you finished with the old business?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much for all of your work with all of us and keeping us on topic and doing the right thing with the SMART concept. Okay, we're moving on to new business topics. A member recruitment update. This is back in your lap, sir.
Okay, so Sherry and I have put out some feelers on getting some additional members, whether or not their residence is not as relevant. According to the code changes that were made earlier this year. So I have been looking for a banker, and I know Sherry, you have put out a couple feelers as well. I had someone approach me in response to one of those, so thank you. So I haven't gotten any positives on bankers yet. I was looking for somebody who has kind of major financing experience, either at the commercial or home stage, maybe not full-scale development, but at least a home lender that is someone who's used to writing those. So,
have you reached out to US Bank? I'm pretty good friends with the guy who is the regional president and oversees the commercial division there.
oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. If you want to send me a separate private message, I can follow up on it.
Right.
Thanks. So if anybody else has any others that are in the finance world in their networks that you have good relationships with, good rapport, that are tactful, that know the Oxford market fairly decently, even if not, they can get the numbers explanation.
Well, why don't we have a brainstorming conversation, because I have other leads in my contacts.
Okay.
Sam, you have a copy of my letter, right? Or do you want me to, when you identified people, do you want me to just go ahead and send that letter out to them too?
You can, yeah. Yeah, that seems to have worked pretty well. And then the other option is, if these folks don't want to actually apply to serve on a regular basis, they could come in every so often according to what our needs are. So, if they can't give the hour and a half a month, I think that was the city manager's advice, then we should at least try to get them for a couple times a year, especially if we have a policy discussion or a project going on.
That's great. Is that an option we could use for Butler County too?
Oh yeah, always. Mhm.
All righty.
We actually may be looking at, I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
Sherry.
Scott. Go ahead.
We actually may be looking at needing two different types of lenders. One on the commercial end for development portion, but then another one that is more specific to the person trying to get the loan to buy the house. Because they're going to be the ones that are more tuned into what tools are out there to help folks that don't have much cash. Ideally, you want houses to become complete by March, because April 1, money gets released at $5,000 a crack as a forgivable down payment, as long as they live there for 7 years. But you have to have somebody lined up to be able to make that happen.
11 minutes.
And that wouldn't be somebody that's going to be in the commercial lending. They wouldn't be covering that.
Good advice. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you, Scott. Okay, housing study, update of housing needs analysis, housing study draft is under review. Yep, it is.
It is, yes. And I could, Sherry, do you want to start or do you want me to give a few?
Yeah, yeah, you go ahead, because I'm sure that you're going to say what I'm probably going to say anyway, so.
Well, not to our surprise, there is a gap in affordable housing. And there is a lack of supply. But it didn't take 253 pages to say that, but it is helpful to have a lot of data now. So interesting things were that the study was done during COVID, and especially with the rental housing market and Miami giving the ability for students to live off campus that were sophomores, to free up to create more space on campus. And so that added an interesting element to this. But there's some really, really good data points in there. I'll say it's not a plan. It's not marching orders. It doesn't tell us what we should do. It just tells us, here's a snapshot in time. So our primary market area was Oxford, and then the secondary market area covered counties outside of Butler as well as Butler County. One of the interesting tidbits I was just looking at is there are 1,200 people on the wait list for the housing choice vouchers, or as some people call the Section 8. So there's a lot of demand and not much supply. And I'm sure, as Nicola has found, people have trouble, and Sherry too. So, finding someplace. They don't want to leave Oxford because they feel it's safe here.
Mm-hmm.
So even if there's something available elsewhere, this is what they're familiar with.
There's pretty much nothing available in all of Butler County. We are having people who want to be in Hamilton ended up in Middletown, and it's chaos here.
A lot of people also like the Talawanda school district. So families with kids don't want to move out of Oxford if they can help it.
Well, the good thing is that Talawanda isn't just the city of Oxford. So you
Right.
do have opportunities
Right.
outside the city limits.
A little bit, yes.
Talawanda schools.
Yes. But even then, families haven't been able to find affordable housing.
So the for purchase, I'll just skip to that. In Oxford, the median price of the 33 homes that were available is 244,500, and in Butler County it was 235,000. So Preble County was 149,000, Union County, Indiana, 119,000. So big difference within the surrounding area. If that's something that is of concern to us, for people when they're making choices on where to live, when they're working here in town, there's a good reason right there. Could be other reasons.
One of the things that struck me about that was the average cost was high, but if you look at the number of days on the market, it's really a lot of days on the market. One of my questions was, I would like to see what the selling price was, because they have the listing price, which is your base price of research. But then after 90 some odd days on the market, what did it really sell for? Because I think that would give us further information. I don't know if they have that that data to give us or not, but I asked for it.
Yeah, they told us, we did a call, Sherry and I did with Zach, with the consultant, and they have a lot more data than what they're giving us, but they didn't want to overload us either. So they even offered that if there are things in the future that we want to get from them, they probably have it in their files. We just haven't asked for it yet, so kind of at no charge. So we may be able to get some of that in the future. We did, there was a special needs summary. We may not use those terms in the final publication. We might use target populations, but so physically disabled, substance abuse, and mental health, I think were the three that we chose out of the 9 that we were able to. And we got some interesting numbers on those. I think it showed that there were 67, actually no, it was homelessness, not mental health, that we chose in the area. And most of that was based on interviews from the service providers, of course, Family Resource Center and others. But physically disabled as well, and which is interesting because, with the Curb Ramp program that we have going on, it helps to, in my mind, justify the work that's being done with housing projects that are happening. The building code doesn't require accessible units for every unit. Universal design is not required. Those are things that are within your wheelhouse as a housing commission. Maybe not things that we would put in our requirements, but maybe someday we will too. So knowing the struggles that those populations have in a housing market that is already tight was interesting to know.
Well, and Sam, even within an aging population, you've got wheelchair ramps that are needed to get in and out of buildings.
Right.
Well, and this is stupid, but I don't see why we can't require all driveways to not have the curb at them in new construction, which would provide another option.
You mean feathering them out into the street, Steve?
Right.
At the driveway?
Yes.
Would you say it again? I just didn't hear it, Steve.
It's when a driveway is built that is equal to the curb height, there's a big bump that you go over, if even in your car. So if we just required them to be feathered down to the gutter level, more of it at a slant, that also provides a wheelchair access, and it's easier for bike riders too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've also thought about that. I like that too. And I think that's going to be a little bit hard to balance because of the stormwater drainage. We're trying to keep ice from building up in that driveway apron. And so there's an 1.5-inch lip that's required even when it does feather down to keep the stormwater from going up in the driveway and making the problem even worse. But on the areas where there's what we call the rollback curb, that's not an issue. So perhaps something can be done from this commission to guide the city engineer into some kind of other specification, because the builder is just doing what they're required. You know, they don't know any different. They're doing what the spec calls for. So yeah, that's good. So the numbers I have for what we're currently calling special needs populations in the 3 categories we looked at, homeless was 67 was the estimate in our population. Physically disabled was 425, which is 1.9% of the population, and substance abuse was 446, 1.9%. So of just those 3, that's almost 5%, which is not including mental health and various other things. So I think there was like 6 more categories, and there may be some overlap there, but you know, when there is an opportunity to combine housing needs with target populations like these, it's good to think about that in advance. So yeah, good to have.
Yeah, the one thing that I noticed when I started to read it was when you, in the very first section, they're talking about housing in general. And so they're mentioning the fact that it's not just affordable housing that we don't have enough of, but there's every kind of housing we don't have enough of here in Oxford. And I started, you know, my blood started to get boiling and thinking that this was not going to be the answer we wanted. But if you read on and continue through that 200+ pages, you'll find that by the time you get to the end, it's pretty much what we had assumed with the affordable housing issue.
How was the data collected?
It was interviews, and I had some focus groups and some interviews.
Okay.
And then of course they had your standard US Census Bureau data.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I look forward to reading it.
Nicola, let me read you off some of the agencies that they talked with.
Okay.
I don't want to, I know we've been at an hour so far. So let's see. Trying to get back to, okay, disabled services, neighborhood housing, primary health, Butler County Elderly Services, Catholic Charities, Haven House, Serve City, YWCA,
Okay.
churches, County Board of Commissioners, Family Promise, of course, FRC, and then quite a few of the property management companies also.
Okay.
Which several of those listed their rents on their websites.
Yeah.
So they combine a lot of that data together.
Okay.
They don't put the names of the people they interviewed in the report just to protect their identity.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
And then I wanted to get some feedback from you all on, we have in their contract to do 1 public meeting. So Sherry's suggestion was we put them, do a council and HAC work session and have the consultant available during the session. So just putting that out there. I don't know if we can get it done, probably not in 2020, but maybe after things calm down after the holidays and the first of the year, we can get the consultant and do a joint work session. So, and maybe that's reaffirming your goals at the same time.
So Sam, will the rest of the commission be able to see the report before that work session?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll have a final publication probably the next month or so. Yeah. Yeah, actually, let me just put it on the screen for you real quick. Just so you can at least see what it looks like. And then
Sam, I'm going to have to bug off. Glenn, could you finish up the rest of the meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody, for your contributions, and we'll see you next month, if not before.
Thank you.
So there's the cover page. We're just going to have Mata City logo, but you can see it's 200 plus pages. So lots of maps, charts, pictures, trends. We've got a few corrections and suggestions. That's why we haven't released it yet. But Sherry and Zach went through it with a fine tooth comb, and we had a call with the consultant. So there you go. And that was really all I had. So I think we were about done anyway.
All right, with that presentation being completed, do we have any other business for the good of the order?
I
Hearing
move,
none. Oh, sorry about that. What was that again?
I move that we adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I want to do a friendly vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye all.